Hey guys, this is Misty. So today we are going to be making this really cute messy bun beanie. As you can see, it's got the hole here. And this pattern is made using the puff stitch. If you don't know how to do that, don't worry. It's a really simple stitch to learn, and it won't take any time at all. The pattern is not that hard to put together. This is a pattern that I have worked on for quite a while and got it sort of just the way I like it, and I think it'll work out really well for you. As you can see, I have a variety here of well, I've got two different greens and a whitish cream color here. I put a lot of these up in my own shop, and you know, so this is a good one for you to take and make. And if you sell at craft fairs, or you've got like an Etsy shop or somewhere that you sell, this is like a top seller. They do really good all the time. So I think you'll find this pretty easy to make, and let's just get started. Okay, so our pattern is starting off with a 4-weight yarn. Okay, I am using this Yarn Bee Soft and Sleek low peel fiber. I've really been enjoying this yarn and how it works up. This is a 4-weight, and it calls for a 6mm crochet hook, and that's what we have here, and that's what the pattern has been written for, is a 4-weight 6mm hook. Now, any 4-weight that you have should do fine. If you're coming up larger or smaller, it could be your tension, it could be your hook size. We will address all of that in another video where I'm going to talk about how to adjust patterns to fit the size yarn and hook that you have. But for right now, we're working with the medium 4 and a 6mm hook for this particular pattern. All right, so we're just going to start by chaining 10. Once we have our chain of 10, we're going to skip this first one, and we are going to single crochet right into this second one right there. And then put a single crochet in all 9 stitches there along the chain. All right, so we've got our 9 stitches in, and we are going to chain 1 and turn our work. Now, we are going to do our ribbing by single crocheting into our back loop only. Okay, if you've never done that before, it's just like a regular crochet, only you're not going to go under your regular V-stitch. We're just going to pick up this back stitch right there, and place our single crochet into that back loop. And we are going to do that all the way down for all 9 stitches. Now we are making the size adult medium today, and that will fit heads about 20 to 22 inches. Okay, so once we get to the end here, we're just going to chain 1, turn our work, and now we're going to do that same thing again for the next row of our ribbing. We're going to go into the back loop only. And that is what we're going to be doing for the whole time that we're doing our ribbing for our hat. All 9 stitches will be done single crochet into that back loop only. So we're going to continue doing this on the adult medium hat that we're making today. We are going to make 52 rows of this ribbing. So I will meet you back here once you have completed 52 rows and we will start the next part of our pattern. Okay guys, so we've got our 52 rows. Now I just want to show you a couple of things. One way to tell that you're on an even row instead of an odd row when you're trying to keep count is if your working yarn and your beginning yarn are on two different sides. Okay, so if this working yarn were up here and we had them on the same side, you would know you were on an odd row, so you would know you're not there. When they're alternating like this, you know you have an even row. Another thing to do when you're counting your ribbing is you can come right here into the grooves. Let me show you. So you see the inside grooves. So here's the upper ridge, and then there's a groove right in the middle, right where the valley is between the two ridges. So every valley that you have is one row coming up and one row going back down. So every valley is 2 rows. So you can just count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 all the way up until you get to this last one coming down at 52, and then you know that you're there. So it's just kind of a quicker way of counting and keeping track of you know how to keep up with where you are when you're doing these ribbings. Now, once you get your 52 done, we're going to join these two by putting our right sides together just like that. Okay, and so we're going to have a rib that's pointing down right there and a rib that's pointing down right there. So we've got 2 outer pieces that we're putting together right like that. And what we're going to do now is we're not going to chain, but we're going to be joining our working piece to this, which was our first chain when we made our chain 10. And we have 9 little lumps here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 little bumps right there. Those are the ones we're going to be going into. So to do this, pull up just a little bit on your working yarn, right like that, and bring your hook out. Now, from the back of this one loop right there, your first little loop, from the back, insert your hook, grab a hold of your working yarn there and pull it under that first one and bring them together like that. Okay, pull that tight. Now you can chain 1 and turn, and you're right back to where you started. Now we're going to go right under this first one, right like that, and right back into that loop that we just went into. Yarn over, pull through, don't yarn over, just go ahead and slip stitch. Go right into the next one, under that V there, and then under your next lump, right there, yarn over, pull through both, and slip stitch. Go into the next stitch, go under both loops of your next stitch, and then under the one bump of what's left of that chain right there, yarn over, pull through, and slip stitch into the next one. Under the bump, yarn over, pull through, and slip stitch. And we're just going to keep doing this until we've slip stitched through all 9 of our stitches and chain 1. Okay, now all we're going to do is flip this piece of work just like that. Now we've got our right side back out again. Or here's our beginning yarn where we chained, and here is our working yarn that we're using now. So let's go ahead and start on the body of our hat. And I just want to start by showing you how we're going to be putting our single crochets in along our ribbing in order to get started. So for every row that we have a single crochet. So if you will look, I know sometimes it can be difficult to know like where you put you just stick it in wherever you can. But to help you kind of stay on track, think of it like this. For every ridge right here, there will be a stitch before the ridge and a stitch after the ridge. A stitch before the ridge and a stitch after the ridge. Okay? Before and after on every single one of these. So you'll have 2 stitches in every V line down where this valley is. You'll have one on this upper side and one on this other side. Okay, so for every valley or V that you have, know that you're going to have 2 stitches, one here at the end, one here at the end. Or if it's better for you to think of it as the pointy ridges, think that you need one before the ridge and one after the ridge. And if you do that, you'll be right on track for having just as many as you need. So what we have to do is, let me pick up my working yarn here. We have to put our single crochets along this ribbing, along the top of it, so that we can then begin to build our hat from here on up in the round. Okay? And so if you're doing the adult medium that we're doing today, we're going to have to go, we're going to be putting in 52 single crochets. That is even number with the ribbing here, but we're also going to be increasing and making it a little bit bigger. And so what we're going to do is we are going to increase along as we go. We're going to increase into every 10th stitch plus 1. What that means is we're going to increase into every 10th stitch, and into our very last one, we're going to also increase and put 2 single crochets into it as well. Okay, so let's just get started. We've already chained 1 to start, and we're going to go right into our first stitch there, right under our chain 1, and go ahead and put our first single crochet. And if you notice, that's going to land right on top of that knot of that beginning chain. And that's exactly what we want, okay? So, then we are going to be, right here will be our next one. Right there into that next stitch, chain 1. There's 2. Now, see that ridge right there? We're going to, on the other side of it now, we've got another hole right there. 3, and then right here we've got another one. 4, and we're just going to keep right on going like this, making sure. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and here's our 10th one. We're going to make an increase in the 10th one. So we're going to put 2 single crochets in that increase. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and here's our 10th one. That's an increase. Okay, so keep going around making an increase every 10th stitch, and I will meet you at our last stitch around. Okay, so I have made 55 stitches, and I've just made an increase, and we have about 3 more stitches to go, because when we finish this with the increases, we will be ending with 58 stitches. So here was 55, here is going to be 56, And then our last one is an increase. So we're going to be putting it right here, 57 and 58. And that's going to get all of our stitches. So if you see, we did every 10. We increased in every 10th one, and then once right here at the end, and that got us right where we needed to be. And we are going to come over here and join with a slip stitch and chain 1 to begin our pattern. Okay, so we're going to be starting on the puff stitches now. And you're going to notice as we go through here that I'm going to be doing sort of an alternating, oh look there, I forgot to crochet over my tail. That's okay. We'll weave it in at the end. It's not really a big deal. All right, so we're going to start our puffs, and we're going to start right here in this very first one where we just chained up. We're going to be putting it right in that first stitch. And we are going to be using a stagger alternating pattern when we place our first and last puffs. That's going to help keep our seam a little bit hidden. Okay, and it's not hard at all. You'll see as we go. So let's go ahead and put our first puff in, and we'll just start right there. So to make a puff stitch, if you haven't done it before, go ahead and yarn over and go right into that very first stitch and draw up a loop. Yarn over, go in again, and draw up a loop. Yarn over, go in again, and draw up your loop. Now, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 loops on your hook. So yarn over and pull through all 7. And then we're going to close that up by chaining 1. The next step is to skip this very next stitch. We're going to skip that one and go right into this next one. So yarn over, skip this one, going right into the next one, and draw up a loop, yarn over, draw up a loop, yarn over, draw up a loop, yarn over, pull through all of the loops on your hook and chain 1. And we've got 2 puffs going now. So we're going to skip this next one, yarn over, go into the next one, draw up a loop, yarn over, draw up a loop, yarn over, draw up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all the loops. Now I want you to notice as I go along, you'll see that I'm pretty generous with my loops here. You know, give yourself the space to really get in there and pull through. You know, there's no need to make it hard on yourselves. Your stitches will settle down where they need to be, okay? So skip this one and yarn over, go into the next one, draw up a loop. See there? You know, you've got, you can give yourself a little room. Yarn over, go in, draw up a loop. Yarn over, go in, draw up a loop. So see how much room you have in there for your hook to move. Yarn over, pull through them all, chain 1. Skip the next one. Draw up your loop, yarn over, draw up your loop, yarn over, draw up your loop, yarn over, pull through all, and chain 1. Now if this is going too fast for you, just pause the video. We'll still be here. We're going to skip this next one and go right into this one right here. Yarn over, into that one, draw up your loop. Yarn over, into that same stitch, and draw up your loop. Yarn over, into that same stitch, and draw up your loop. Yarn over, pull through all, chain 1, and skip the next. Now, this is what we're going to be doing all the way around to the end. So I'm going to continue on making puffs, and I want you to do the same. And I'm going to meet you before we put that last puff in. Okay, so I'm getting ready to put in my last puff stitch. of this round, and it is going to go right there. So let's go ahead and make that. If you're making the adult medium that I'm making here with you today, you should end up with 29 puff stitches around. So let's just go right into that stitch and make our puff. And chain one, and now this stitch will be a skipped stitch, and this little space right here is our join from the other round, so that's not a stitch. So we're going to go right here into the first stitch of this puff, the very first one there, right there, and we are going to slip stitch to join. Now if you notice, because of our little space here, we've got a little bit of a gap, and we're going to fix that in our next go round. So we're going to correct this little gap space, and that's going to help hide our seam, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. So go ahead and chain up one to start round 3. Alright, so in the last round when we put our puffs in, we started in our very first stitch, which is right here under that chain 1. In this round, we're going to start in the second one. We're not going to go right here into the second stitch itself. We're going to go right in front of it into that chain space. So we're going to be right into that skipped stitch right here in this space. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to start into the second, not into the first. We're going to start into the second, into this chain space with our first puff. And it's going to look a little bit awkward at first. Let's go ahead and make that first one, and I'll show you. Come through and chain 1. And if you see, we've got sort of this leaning line here. Okay? We're going to correct that when we get back to the end. Okay, so just stick with me, trust me, for a few minutes, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So we're just going to go through here now and put in our puffs into every chain space all the way around. I'm sorry if you can hear the rain outside my window here. It has, it's raining in Maine today. So it gets kind of noisy sometimes. But we're just making puffs all the way around. And I am going to meet you back when we finish this row and show you where that last puff stitch is going to go. Okay guys, so I have made it around to our last 2 puffs that we have to put in. So let's just go ahead and put that, put this puff in, chain 1, and then look here. This is that space. You see this space like on our first row here where we had this joiner chain, and right here beside of it, right here is where our original first stitch would go. But we brought it over here to the second space instead. Well, we're going to put our last puff. If we had originally started here, our puff would be ending here. But because we came over one, we have an extra puff here at the end, and we're going to be putting it into this space. And that is just going to even everything out for us. And fill that space and make it look more cohesive all the way around. So when we're finished, our seam basically is going to go over, just like that all the way up to where it's going to kind of be untraceable after a while. So now let's go ahead. We're going to, our first stitch here is now over here a little bit away from our original seam. And we're going to slip stitch right into there. Okay, now chain 1 to start the next row, and right here now we're right back over top of the first puff we made. You see that? Right here is our stitch, our place for our stitch, and we're over that first puff and to the side of this second one. So on this row we're going to go back into the first stitch and make a puff right there into that first stitch of our round, and chain 1, and then we're going to skip over this and make our second stitch right there into that one, and chain 1. And as you see now, we've gone back into the first. Okay, so we're going to go all the way around, and I will meet you back here before the join. Okay, so I have made it back around, and I have 1 stitch left. So we had brought, on the previous row, we had brought this stitch way far over here. Now we're back to the regular position of just right here, before the one from the previous row. So just stick that last one into place, chain 1, and then come right here into that top stitch of that first puff and slip stitch to join, chain 1, and now we're going up a row. So what's going to happen here is we are going to alternate again. So instead of going into this first one, we're going to jump over here and go into this second space right there. Okay, so yarn over and put that puff right into that second space, and then continue around with your puffs. Okay, so I have made it around to our very last stitch, and I just wanted to show you this one more time. This would normally not be a stitch, but because we started in that second space, our last puff is going to go right there into that last little space, chain 1, and then we're going to slip stitch right here into that first stitch to join. And our next puff, we're going to chain up. Our next puff is going to begin right here in that first stitch space, right there. We're going to go right in there into that chain space right here under our first stitch. Pull up, and pull up, pull through, and chain 1. All right, now go ahead and complete this and the next 3 rows. So when we get finished with this amount of puffs in this stagger position here, you would have completed 7 rows of puffs. So when you have, it's easier to count these in the diagonal like this. So when you can count 7 puffs in a row, meet me back here, and I'm going to show you what to do for our decrease rounds and how to finish up on our hat. So we went around round 1 right here around our ribbing, and then we had 7 more rows of puff stitches. And the best way to keep count of these is kind of go in the diagonal, is the easiest way to count them. So our next stitch is going to be the beginning of our decrease rounds. Okay, so we are going to continue doing the same staggering pattern with our puffs, even in the decrease rounds. We're going to keep that going so that we can get all the way to the top. And if you notice, right here is where we're coming together. And with that stagger the way it is, it's really hard to tell the difference between that and the rest of the stitches. So So for the adult medium hat that we're working on, our next row is going to be chain 1, and this is one that starts in the second stitch. So we're going to puff into that second stitch, and then we are going to be decreasing every 4th stitch. So here was one that we just put in there. Now let's do number 2 and the 3rd one. And now this next one is our 4th one. And what's going to happen is we're going to be decreasing between the 4th and the 5th stitches. Okay, so how we're going to do this is we're going to go in and put our regular puff. We dipped in 3 times, then we're going to yarn over, and instead of going through our loops, we're going to go right into that next one, and we're going to do another full puff. Go in 3 times, and now we're going to yarn over, and we're going to go through all the loops on our hook and chain 1. And there is our decrease puff. So let's do 3 more puffs. And now we're here at the 4th puff, and we're going to decrease just like before between this 4th and 5th. So we're going to go in, and we're going to dip in 3 times to get our puff stitch and yarn over, and then we're going to go in and pull up our loops again just like we're doing another puff stitch, yarn over, and pull through all those loops. And just as a little tip, when you're pulling through your puff loops, if you will press that crochet hook way up against the top of those stitches when you're pulling through, it will help keep you from snagging on your yarn. So let's do it again. We've got 3 puffs and chain 1, and here is the next one, and chain 1, and whoops, here's the 3rd one, and chain 1, and now we're going to do another decrease. So yarn over, go in and get all 3 dips of your puff, yarn over, and go again. Pull those loops up on your hook and pull up tall to get through the top of those loops without snagging, and chain 1. So let's go in again, and we're going to do the next 3 puffs. Here's 1, here's 2, and here's 3, and then we have a decrease. So go in and start making that puff and go right into the next one. Get that pretty tight on there and press up against the top of those loops as you pull through. All right, now we've got 3 more to make. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and now we have a decrease. So get in there for the 4th stitch and the 5th stitch. Yarn over, pull up tall, chain 1. And now we're going in to the next puff And the next one. And here is the third one. And now here at the end, remember we started on that second one? So we are going to have a final stitch right here in this last, and we won't be doing a decrease on this fourth because we don't have anywhere else to go there. So we're just going to put that fourth puff right in there, and then we're going to come over and we are going to slip stitch right in that first stitch there. All right, so everybody should be having 24 stitches, 24 puff stitches all the way around. So for our next decrease round, we want to chain up, and on this one we are going to go into this first space and put a puff stitch. And in the next space we're going to make a decrease. So go ahead and put 2 stitches worth of puffs on your hook, pull up tall and pull through all those loops. All right, and now for the rest of this row we are going to puff 2 times. So we're going to have 2 puffs. There's 1 and there is 2, and then a decrease. Go right into that next one and grab up the, pull up tall and pull through, chain 1, and then go into the next one. This is a regular puff, and your second one of this set, go right in there with a regular puff, and then we're going to make a decrease. So pick up the first part of it here and then go right into that next one and pull through. Well, you know what? I didn't pull up tall enough. I just lost my stitch. So we'll do it again. Yarn over, get in there, I got in a hurry. Yarn over, pull up tall, pull through all those loops, and chain 1. So now we're back to 2 puffs again, and chain 1, and now the second one, and chain 1, and now we're going to make a decrease. So here's the first one and the next one. Yarn over, pull up tall when you pull through those, and then chain 1, and then we have another set of 2, and chain 1, and our second one, and now we have a decrease. So pick up that first part. Woo, I got way down in there. And now pick up the second one, pull up tall and go through all those loops and chain 1. Now we have another 2 puffs, and here's the second one, And now we have a decrease. And right into the next. Pull up tall. Chain one, and now here's going to be our last puff of this round. Okay, and pull up and chain one. Okay, so let's go ahead and slip stitch into that first one to join. Now, next we are going to do a different kind of decrease. So the next round is going to start in a second stitch from our hook. So let's chain one. Now, every time we make a puff, we make our puff stitch. Okay, there's our puff. And then we yarn over and we pull through all. And then we yarn over and chain one. So these puffs are going to be a little bit different. We're going to do yarn over. We're going to make a regular puff. Okay, so we've got all our loops. Yarn over and pull through all. But we are going to be leaving these puffs open. So we're going to be doing open puffs for the whole next row here. Okay, every stitch of the row we are not going to chain one when we come out of our puff stitch. So from here, instead of chaining one, we are going to go right back or right into this next stitch. So if we look at our hat right now, you can see that it's starting to curve in, right? It's starting to curve in. This is going to make a dramatic difference in how this hat looks in just a quick round here. So leave that puff open, do not chain one. Go ahead and yarn over straight away and into the next. And do another puff, but leave it open, don't chain. Yarn over and do another open puff. Pull through, do not chain one, yarn over into the next. Pull through, do not chain one, yarn over into the next. Yarn over, pull through, do not chain, yarn over into the next. And we are just going to keep right on doing that all the way around. Now we're almost back to where we're going to join. And just remember, we're not chaining one between these stitches. We're going through all of them and just yarning over straight away. So we have one more here, right there from where we started in that second stitch. We have to do this one on the end. And again, we're going to pull through, but we're not going to chain one, even coming over here to slip stitch. We're going to leave it open just like that, and we're going to come right over here and slip stitch into that first stitch. Okay, so let me pull up on this yarn here and take a look at what we've done. Now, as you can see, we've tightened up substantially there in a short amount of time. So if I take my hand like this and sort of close this in, you can see that we're starting to form our little hole for our messy bun. And you can also see that these decreases are not overly obvious. This is a very, I have found that doing it this way really creates a very cohesive decline into that into that hole so that so that everything is sort of even. All right, at this point we should have 18 of these open puffs all the way around. As you can see, they do look a little bit looser, but when the whole thing comes together, you're going to really see what a difference it can make. So in this next one, we are going to have another decrease round, and this time we are going to be working with a decrease round and doing the open puffs at the same time. So go ahead and chain one, and we're starting in our first space here for this one. So yarn over and go ahead and go into that first space and pull through without chaining one. Now we are going to do 2 more puffs. So there is one, and there's our next space. You may have to look a little bit harder for your spaces now. They're not as obvious as they were. Now we're going to do a decrease. So we're going to go right into there, pull up all the loops for our first puff, and then go right in and grab up the second ones. Yarn over, pull up tall now. Do not chain one. It's very tempting when you have that these heavy ones on there. So now we are going to do 4 more puffs. So yarn over, and here's the first one. Yarn over. Here's the second one. And yarn over. Here's the third one. And yarn over. And here's the fourth one. And yarn over. Now it's time for a decrease. So pull up the first set and go straight in and pull up that second set, pull through, and yarn over. We're going to do 4 more puffs. Here's 2. Here's 3. Here's 4. Now we're going to do a decrease. And into the next. Pull through all of those and yarn over. And now we're going to have one last puff right here. So let's go in and do our last one. Pull through and go ahead and slip stitch without that other chain one. Go ahead and slip stitch into the top of that next one. Now, right now we should have 15 of our puff stitches. So let's start right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So there's all 15 of our stitches. And so our next row is really just our finishing work. Okay, so chain one, and now we are just going to go around and we are going to place a single crochet in every single stitch. And this is going to be, and you'll notice that because we didn't do those chain ones our stitches are much larger. Okay, do you see that? Here's my single crochet. I still have this much stitch left. I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to go right into that next one. And then reach over and go right into that next one. This is going to help cinch all this together very evenly. When we get finished and we slip stitch in the end, that's going to help cinch our circle without making any big huge differences. And into the next one, and the next one. We're just single crocheting. And then right here you can tell when we're back, because you can see these little crochets again. You can see those little single crochets after this one. So go ahead and put a single crochet in here and slip stitch right there into that last one. Tighten down quite a bit, very tightly. Slip stitch there. Come in here and cut your yarn, pull it through to fasten off. And there is our hole for our bun. All right, so let's just weave in our ends and we will call it done. See. And there you have it. Now I gotta find where let's find where the seam is. Okay, here's our seam. Now I felt this seam on the other side right there. So this is what it looks like on the seam side. Okay, let me move you out just a little bit so you can, well, that's closer. All right, so that's what it looks like on this. This is where your seam is. So I think we did all right, didn't we? Okay. That's got your seam to the side. So it's really a lovely hat. If you fold your brim down here like this, you can lay it out and just sort of look at how it looks on top. Now this little hole for your hair, it has a pretty decent stretch to it. You will be able to fit it. You don't really need to have an elastic band in there. The bottom up really doesn't give way for the elastic band to go in, but these do just fine. They do really well. And that's it. Yeah. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know if you like it. Leave it down below. And thank you all so much for being with me today. Go out and do something you love today. All right. Always remember to take care of yourself. Until next time. Bye-bye.